Meanwhile, I thought it'd be a good idea to study a little Torah tonight. So let's take a look at our teaching for tonight. So this is the week where, Moses is going over the whole history of the Jewish people and reviewing that for everyone. And now he's up to Sinai, right? And he describes how he went up to the mountain to get the Torah. This is what he says. When I went up the mountain to take the stone tablets of the covenant that God had established with you, I sat on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. I didn't eat bread and I didn't drink water. Okay. Anybody have a comment on that?
I guess God was pretty nourishing.
Yeah, I guess. God was nourishing, or God arranged it so that when you're up there on the mountain, you don't need the things that, the physical things you normally need. Now, one question we could ask about this is this really what it takes to receive the Torah?
What do you mean what it takes? What does that mean?
I mean, do we have to be so removed from anything physical in order to receive the Torah?
Well, I guess so. I mean, that's what happened reportedly. I think maybe you need to be in a state of complete focus. I would argue that that's
if I went that long without food and drink, I would lack focus. I can go through Yom Kippur and I can be pretty focused even toward the end of Nila.
Yeah.
But after that, I don't think my focus would hold up too long.
Yeah, but this is an extraordinary situation.
Oh, so this is special. Well, I mean, yeah, I know it is special. But, Sinai is supposed to be special. Is it really does it have to be that special that for 40 days and 40 nights, Moses takes in nothing physical?
Well, that was just for him. It's not for us.
Well, let me take pains to remind you that Moses was a physical person.
Yes, but he was acting as the conduit. It was a special situation for him. He was at the top of the mountain. We were down here.
So this is a one-off, right?
I think so.
Never was before, never will be again.
We had just seen a bunch of miracles. Why not one more now?
Why not one more now? So maybe.
It's all a one-off.
Maybe.
Now, we haven't had those kind of miracles for 3,000 years.
Yeah. Now, one other possibility is that this could be telling us something about how, in order to receive Torah, and I don't mean the way that Moses did, but in order to receive the Torah the way that we normally do, there has to be some degree of self-denial, or what we would refer to, on Yom Kippur, for instance, as asceticism, right? So maybe there's that kind of message encoded into this whole story.
Did the rabbis say that?
I'm sorry?
Did the Rabbonim say that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I said it, but I'm just trying to derive something on my own here. I'm not claiming that I read this in some commentary, but I think
there have been
it's one way to read it.
times-
I'm sorry?
Sometimes some groups of Jews have gone in for a little bit of asceticism, but mostly not.
Yeah, I mean, there have been instances of Jewish communities which tended to be much more ascetic than Judaism is today. So one of the prime examples of this was you had in the 12th, 13th, and a little bit of 14th centuries in Germany, what were called the Hasidei Ashkenaz, the German pietists. And, you know, for them, life was a trial. And if you wanted to pass the test, you were on, you know, you're on trial your whole life. And then when it's over, then you get the verdict. Right? But the ultimate deal is you're always on trial. So you have to do more than is obligated upon you. If you really want to expect to pass the trial, this is how the Hasidei Ashkenaz approach things.
They were rough.
They just said, you have to do a little bit of extra. If you sin, for instance, it's not enough just to repent. You have to undergo certain mortifications.
Rolling in the snow.
Well, that kind of thing, yeah, not necessarily that, you know, but, you know, it may have been influenced by the medieval Christians too, who seemed to enjoy that sort of mortification. You know, I don't have a definitive answer to this. I'm just saying that maybe our text suggests that asceticism to some degree is associated with the receiving the acceptance of Torah. Possibility. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Barbara has a comment in the text, is Moses had to focus on his discourse. You know, I think you get a little bit of multitasking in there, maybe. So, you know, focusing on your discourse with God, I mean, you know, this also seems to suggest that he had no physical needs. He didn't sleep for 40 days either. Playing off the 40 years wandering. Well, let me say a word about the number 40, right? There are all sorts of things in the Torah about the number 40, right? Y'all know, you know, 40 days and 40 nights of rain.
David ruled for 40 years.
Wandering and 40 days on Mount Sinai and so forth. One theory that a modern biblical scholar had, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what his name was. He's not one of the biggies, but he wrote this article where he theorized that the number 40 is symbolic because it takes 40 years of 40 weeks of gestation to bring a child into the world. Those of you who are mothers, I apologize for that exaggeration. So 40 weeks of gestation. In other words, everything that has to do with the number 40 has to do with bringing something new and alive into the world. Right?
So David's 40 years was his monarchy, his what you call it, dynasty.
Yes, so, which is the beginning of the
Messiah.
first temple period, even though the temple isn't built by King David. Right? Also, now back to what Moses says to the people here as he's wrapping up. He says Barbara says he might have been trying to tell the people he too had to have faith in order to believe that God will take care of him, just like God took care of the people in the desert. Right? So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's why he brings to mind the fact that he was there for 40 days and 40 nights. Why he had to do it without any physical sustenance whatsoever, probably didn't even get naps. Right? So, now that is still kind of an open question. So, there is another question that is raised by this, and it's a question with which the rabbis struggle, and that is, how did the Jewish people come to deserve to receive the Torah? Right? Yeah, Anne, what are you going to say?
They didn't.
They didn't deserve it, right? But they wound up with it. So, in our tradition, there's a whole approach to this which suggests that the Torah actually was offered to other nations first. Now, how seriously you want to take this, I don't know, but I think there's a message behind it. And so here is the text. This is one version of the text which appears in the Midrashic work Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, taught by Rabbi Tarfon. The Blessed Holy One rose and came from Mount Sinai and was revealed unto the sons of Esau, as it is said, and he said, the Lord came from Sinai and rose from Seir unto them. Seir refers only to the sons of Esau, as it says, Esau dwelled in Mount Seir.
Oh.
And so the Blessed Holy One said to the family of Esau, his descendants, will you accept upon yourselves the Torah? And they said to him, okay, so what's written in it? And he said, well, you shall not murder. And they said to him, nah, we're not going to give that up. We love to murder. That's what we do. The Midrash, however, puts it a little more nicely. It says, they replied to him, well, we're unable to abandon the blessing with which Isaac blessed Esau. For he said to him, by your sword you shall live. In other words, he's blaming the Jews for all of their sins, right? Typical anti-Semitic tactic, right? It's all the fault of the Jews. We're a bunch of murderers, but it's because you made us that way. You said, by your sword you shall live.
No,
Right?
that was Isaac that said that,
Right.
not Israel.
No, but Isaac at that time is like the leader of the Jewish people. So, it's a convenient blame, right? In reality, I think my version of that is more accurate. The Edomites, the people of Esau says, this is what we do. This is our thing. That's how we operate. So,
Them and the Godfather.
I'm sorry?
Them and the Godfather.
Right.
The family.
So God turned and was revealed to the Ishmaelites. As it is said, he shined forth from Har Paran. And Paran refers only to the Ishmaelites. It says he dwelled in the wilderness of Paran. Right? That verse refers to Ishmael. Right? When Ishmael is sent away from the family of Abraham. And so God says to them, will you accept upon yourselves the Torah? And they said, what's written in it? And he said, you shall not steal. And they said, not going to take that. That's what we do. We steal. No, the Midrash puts it more nicely. It says, we are unable to abandon the usage our fathers observed, where they brought Joseph down into Egypt, as it is said, for indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews. Right? Who brought him down? The Ishmaelites. Right? That's one version of the story, by the way. Right? And so God then sent messengers to all the nations of the world and said, will you accept upon yourselves the Torah? And they said, well, what's written in it? He answered, you shall have no other gods before me. And they replied to him, no, we're not going to do that. We have no delight in the Torah. There's nothing special in there for us. Therefore, let him give his Torah to his people. As it is said, very convenient how all these pagans know this verse from Psalms, the Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. Shem Yavarech et amo v'shalom. Right? And then, so God turns around and he is revealed to the Israelites. And it is said, he came from the 10,000s of holy ones. The expression of 10,000s refers to the Israelites. When it rested, he said, return, O Lord, unto the 10,000s of the thousands of Israel. And so with God were thousands and thousands of chariots, even 20,000 holy angels, and his right hand was holding the Torah. As it is said, at his right hand was a fiery law unto them. Okay? So, thus, the Midrash. Right? But what it also says is that we don't necessarily automatically have a right to the Torah. You know? And if we do have a right to it, why does Moses have to go on the mountain and do without physical things for 40 days and 40 nights? You know? There is a phrase which is coming later in Deuteronomy, and I know that many of you are familiar with this phrase, and that is the phrase, Lo b'shamayim hi. The Torah is not in heaven. All right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We love that one.
yeah, but if we're going to say the Torah is not in heaven, why does it start out there?
It was created before he created the whole universe.
Well, that's one explanation, right? The Torah is actually the blueprint for creation. Yeah, the rabbis like that explanation very much. The mystics like it very much. I think it's a fanciful solution to our problem.
You got another one?
So, you know, so one question relating to this is, what do we learn about the nature of Torah and about integrating the Torah into our lives from the fact that Moses had to go outside of the physical world in order to learn it?
We learn that it's possible to make the physical world spiritual.
Well, that is one. Well, that would explain why we raise the Torah up to heaven here on earth. It doesn't explain why the Torah comes from heaven.
Well, it's got all these physical commandments in it. It's got to be about the spirituality of the physical.
Oh, so yeah, it has to be kept in this world. right? That's why, according to the Midrash, the angels, were shut up by God when they complained and said, "You're giving this Torah the flesh and blood?" And God says to the angels, "You know what? You can't do this stuff."
I thought it was Moses who said that to the angels.
Okay, fine. Moses said it. God approves. God says, you guys are just, you're made to follow orders. Human beings have a choice. That's the difference between human beings and angels. I mean, yeah, we like to think that, angels are these totally good beings.
And robots.
Yeah, actually, angels in the rabbinic view, angels are sort of like golems, right? They just they follow instructions. They have one job, and when they finish that job, that's it for them. So I recognize that I'm raising questions, and I'm not necessarily providing answers. You just, at a certain point, you may come up with an answer. Let's take a look at this next teaching. Once Moses goes up the mountain, apparently he's no longer alone. That's where we have this.
Rabbi, could you use your pointer and I'm lost as to where we are. Where are we on the screen? Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah. So, this is a midrash in the Talmud, and this is this sort of imagines Moses as being sustained by the fact that he's in this rarefied company, but in keeping with the rabbinic view that there's not necessarily one answer to a question, Moses and the angels get into an argument. Right? So, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, when Moses ascended to the heavens, the ministering angel said to God, what's he doing here? Why is a human being up here with us? And God says, well, he came to receive the Torah. And reflecting on what Anne said before, that the Torah pre-existed the universe, they say back to God, this beloved treasure that has been stored for you for 974 generations before the world was created, and you want to give it to a person of flesh and blood? What is a human being that you should remember him? A human being that you should take him into account.
Psalm 8.
And quotes this verse from Psalm 8, our Master God, what glory could be brought to your name in the earth should place your splendor in heaven. That's I think the sense of how the angels are reading this verse. Place your splendor in heaven. All right? In other words, this Torah belongs to us, and this realm belongs to us. What'd you invite him for? So what does God do? God says, Moses, no, you talk to them. Right? You give them an answer. Moses says, Master of the universe, the Torah that you are giving to me, what is written in it? I am the Lord your God who has taken you out of the land of Egypt. At the beginning of the 10 Commandments, right? Moses says to the angels, did you go down to Egypt? Were you enslaved by Pharaoh? Why would the Torah be for you? And look at what else is in it. Remember the day of Shabbat to keep it holy. You do any labor that you would need a rest? And what else is in it? do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal. So is there jealousy among you? Do you angels have an evil inclination? And so immediately they agree with God. Yeah, okay, better to give the Torah to human beings. As it says, our Master God, what glory could be brought to your name in the earth? Meaning that, by giving human beings the Torah and a way of sanctifying God, this brings glory to God's name, to God's reputation. Right? So, comments or questions up to here? Yes, Nick?
So basically, Moses threw Jewish guilt on him.
On the angels.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. Was it you? Were you there? Shut up. It's like, be quiet. What's wrong with you? It's funny.
Yes,
It's-
Del.
Isn't there a tradition in
Hold
Kabbalah?
on, Del. Go ahead, Del.
We need an instruction manual for how to do things right. The angels just get, God tells them do X, Y, Z, and they go do X, Y, Z.
Right.
They don't get to choose yes or no or right from wrong.
Right.
We have to. So we have to be taught.
Yeah. So, I think the theory behind this, again, the Torah pre-exists the creation, and so the angels are used to having it around, so to speak, in the throne room, right? Wonder if they had an ark there. And they also have a point, and they say, these people are not going to do all this stuff. They're not going to keep this very well. So God says, Moses, you tell them. Yeah, Moses says, yeah, we may not wind up doing it very well, but we're the ones that need it. We're the ones that need direction. So that's right, Dill. Yeah, Ann.
Doesn't it say somewhere in Kabbalah that notwithstanding what Moses said, there's another higher Torah, and he only brought down the earthly version?
There is in Kabbalah a notion of a Torah of letters that were removed from the Torah, thus preventing us from recognizing the hidden meanings within it. Right? How that would work out, got me. Right? So, but Moses has pretty good arguments here that he gives to the angels. Right? So, it's like, why do you get to have the Torah in the heavens at all? Right? So why would the angels have it in the first place? Of course, Moses is there. It's almost as if he is fighting to bring the Torah down to the people. It doesn't say that Moses received the Torah. He says he went up la kachat, to take the Torah. Right? So that provides a little support for the idea in the Midrash that his experience in heaven involved his kind of yanking it away from those who had it before. It's not just given to him. And also, the way he describes it, it's like not eating and not drinking is part of the experience of learning and taking the Torah. And we're going to see this in this next Midrash, where talks about how, what's going on while Moses is up there on the mountain. So here's where we are. So they recognize, 40 days up there on the mountain. Moses is a physical being. From what did he eat? From the Torah. Right? There's something about the Torah that sustains us. As it says, human being, eat what you will find. And I ate it, and it was in my mouth as sweet as honey. Notice that that's from the 3rd chapter of Ezekiel. And the opening chapters of Ezekiel are mega mystical, right? And why? The Torah is sweet. It says in Psalm 19, the words of Torah are sweeter than honey and the drippings of honeycombs. Right? So that is what sustains Moses. That's one opinion. Right? It's like, Ezekiel is asked to eat a scroll of prophecy, and Moses is asked to consume the Torah. Okay? Comments or questions up to here?
Notice what Barbara says to everybody.
Yeah. So, that in Jewish education, when you would take children to cheder for the first time, it was traditional to give them cookies shaped like the letters of Aleph Bet. So, and you would have some honey with them too, so that the children would know the sweetness of learning, right? And then after that was over, the Melamids kind of knocked them around, and Jewish education was, to the best of my knowledge, this is like the one thing that was good about Jewish education, that you got cookies the first day. Afterwards, it was brutal, but the first day was great. Right? Cookies and honey cake and honey and whatnot. Yes, Ann.
My father reported that when he was a little boy in the Ukraine and went off at the age of 4 to learn, they would slap his hand with a ruler.
Right.
Quite frequently. He said he was trying to be good.
Right. I want you to know, by the time, I am pretty old, but by the time I was in cheder, they didn't do that anymore. I never had my hand slapped with a ruler.
No, they did it in Europe.
Well, yeah. But, Oklahoma was like a new form of Europe, at least for the Jews. Okay.
My hand in public school.
Yeah. They didn't do that in public school in my place either, but they had other problems. So, next. Are other questions or comments here? Okay, so back to the next text. Another midrash, and this gives a whole different perspective. This is the perspective that says, you guys have to be kidding, right? How could Moses possibly go on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights and not eat or drink? Let's get real, okay? You don't really believe that. Well, and so, is it really possible? And the answer is, Rabbi Tanchum said in the name of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Avin, who said in the name of Rabbi Meir, It's an old saying, if you go to a city, you abide by its norms. In other words, when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? They don't, the rabbis in the Midrash didn't like Rome very much, so they didn't use that example. But here it is. When you go to Rome, do like the Romans. And here you are in heaven. In heaven, there is no eating or drinking. So Moses ascended and he made himself like them. And just to show that that everybody is consistent with this, below where there is eating and drinking, the ministering angels descended and they ate and drank. Right? And there's the proof text from the story of Abraham. The angels ate from the food that Abraham offered them. That's a pretty clever answer. Right? So, it's not polite to eat in the realm of the angels or the realm of God. Right? So, when in heaven, you do as the angels do. So, there are certain norms up there, and if we go up there, we have to live by those norms too. Maybe there is some expectation of asceticism when you want to approach a realm where they don't eat or drink. Right? So what we get from this is, the Torah is not given to Moses in a vacuum. He takes it from the angels. He learned from the angels. He saw the way they ran things there. And that is also part of what Moses learned on the mountain. The Torah comes from one community and it is given directly to another one. Right? And the angels clearly value it, but it's a little different for them. Right? Now, this idea that in order to implement and understand the Torah, you have to accept certain norms of society. This we see in our next text. Okay? So, it's the Midrash from Vayikra Rabbah. Rabbi Yishmael, son of Rav Nachman, said, Derech Eretz, good manners, preceded the Torah by 26 generations. This is in line with what is written, to guard the way of the tree of life. The way, derech, is derech eretz, good manners. And then only afterwards you have the tree of life, which is Torah. So, just as the Torah existed for many generations before it was given to human beings, so also the notion of good manners, meaning an appropriately run society, that existed before the Torah itself. Proper behavior is primary, right? And that undergirds our engagement with mitzvot. So we have to understand what it means to be good human beings, and then we can be servants of God and students of the Torah. So we learn those norms from each other. We learn them from the community. That's where they are born. That's where they are adopted. So not only does the Torah create a good society, but it also reflects a good society. So there's a good deal in Jewish tradition about the idea of natural law, that there are certain things that are either good manners or good conduct that that are just natural to human beings. And if we didn't learn them from the Torah, we could learn them from things around us. Right? You don't want to separate the Torah from the human context, right? And that is the subject of this text here, right? Quotes the Talmud quotes this verse in Deuteronomy, which says, Hasket, pay attention. divide yourselves into groups, katot. So that's kind of a pun on the word hasket. And engage in the Torah, because the Torah is only acquired through fellowship. In other words, you don't learn it in a vacuum. You don't learn it by yourself. You learn it as part of a group. You learn it with a chavruta, with someone that you study it together with, right? You learn it in a Zoom meeting together with a bunch of other people, right? Like Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Hanina, who said, what does the verse teach as written? A sword on the badim, the diviners, and they will be found foolish. A sword against the enemies of Torah scholars, meaning Torah scholars themselves, who sit in isolation. Badim here is bad bavad, and they engage in Torah. In other words, if they isolate themselves, then they are deserving of the sword. Not only that, but they become foolish. It says here, they will be found foolish, and is written there in Numbers, we have acted foolishly. Not only that, but they will sin, because it says in the continuation of the verse from Deuteronomy, and we have sinned. Right? In other words, if you separate yourself from the community, all sorts of bad things are going to happen, and it has to happen within the community. Right? If you study it alone, there's no one there to tell you that your idea is mistaken. And there's no one there to show you that maybe your interpretation is just not practical or not humane, right? How do you learn how to honor parents, right? You learn it from seeing other people doing it, right? You learn it by, watching people treat their parents with gratitude and respect, sensitivity. If you try to learn it by memorizing a list of do's and don'ts, you'll get a bunch of detail, but you won't really have learned how to honor someone. Right? It's just like, you can't learn what it feels like to observe Shabbat from reading the laws of forbidden labor. Hmm? Moses tells the angels that the Torah is to be lived by people with challenges, people with bodies, people with history. Hmm? And Moses learns from the angels too. He says, you're going to take this back to other people, and you have to live an angelic life of respect for each other, service to God. Okay? And then Moses, just to finish this, Moses continues his narration of the time on the mountain. He says, God gave me the 2 tablets of stone written by God's finger, and upon them were all of the things that God spoke to you on the mountain from inside the fire on the day of congregation. And Moses receiving God's teaching from God's hand, written literally by God's finger, whatever that means, right? So it happens on the day that they congregate together. Moses took the Torah from the angels, brought it down to the people. So when we learn Torah also, we should try to learn not just from the text itself, but also from people who learn and practice Torah. That's the way you have a living, breathing Torah. Comments or questions? Yes, Ann.
I have a stupid question. Let somebody else go first.
I don't see anybody else in line.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick?
Oh, I didn't say anything, Rabbi.
Okay. I just thought I saw your hand up. Yes,
No,
Ian, go ahead.
It twice in the text that you've given us, it's twice mentioned, yea, many hundreds of generations before the creation of the world was the Torah given.
Right.
That's kind of a long time, especially since there wasn't any such thing as time before the world was created. I don't understand what they're trying to say there. I guess they're just saying it was a long time, but there was no time.
I would have to look up what particularly is meant by 974 generations and how they arrived at that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you brought this whole piece of, the Torah pre-creating, pre-existing before creation. You brought that into the discussion even before we got to the text. So
Yeah, but it could have been 5 minutes. Why, yea, many generations?
there you are. Yeah, well, maybe for God, it's the same, 5 minutes is like 974 generations. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you,
All
Rabbi.
right. Shabbat Shalom.
And you trimmed your beard, Daniel.
Good Shabbos.